Towards the end of 1991, a relatively unknown three-piece Seattle rock band took the music world by storm when the lead single to their major label debut was released. That band was Nirvana, that album was Nevermind, and that song was Smells Like Teen Spirit, which, upon release, unexpectedly catapulted them from financially struggling underground obscurity to knocking Michael Jackson, the king of pop, off the #1 spot on the Billboard album chart, an unheard-of accomplishment. It was the catalyst that changed not only music history, but modern culture forever after. Now, while many people say that type of thing about many songs and many bands, in Nirvana's case, it's not an exaggeration. Other than the Beatles, no other band has had such a sudden mania surrounding them to the same effect Nirvana did after releasing Smells Like Teen Spirit. It literally changed music and culture. It flipped everything on its head, making everything before it, even right before it, practically irrelevant to a large segment of the target demographic. It unintentionally ushered in a new era. So then, it must be about something pretty profound, right? Well, that's the thing. Some Nirvana fans will tell you that it's not. They'll swear it isn't really about anything. They'll point out that there's no typical storyline, no tightly woven narrative, no deep moral messages being put forth, no blatant political statements, and no outright obvious social commentary either. When I wrote the song, I was feeling a lot of pressure to write something catchy, Teen Spirit songwriter Kurt Cobain would tell biographer Michael Azerrad, and I didn't put a lot of thought into the lyrics. And yet, despite Kurt's dismissive attitude, one which many fans have latched onto as gospel, repeating the erroneous mantra that Kurt didn't care about his lyrics and that they were basically afterthoughts, despite all that, when analyzed, the lyrics are brilliant. And I'm not just talking about the emotional honesty in the vocal performance itself, which is inarguably epic all on its own, and a major reason for the inferno Teen Spirit lit in the music industry. No, I mean the lyrics themselves are masterful. The turns of phrases, the imagery, the irony, the sarcasm, the humor, the cleverness, the double entendres, the flipping of word and phrase meanings, the expressions of apathy and awkwardness that connected so well with the generation of youth it reached, the intentional contradictory overtones, the rhyme patterns, the anti-metabolies, the twisting wordplay, all make the Teen Spirit lyric sheet an elite example of wordsmithing to behold. And this is no accident either. While Kurt liked to brush away questions about his lyrics and treat them as if they were afterthoughts, and admittedly, many Nirvana song lyrics were written at the last second, at least at that period in his songwriting, this particular case is different. Early lyric sheets to Teen Spirit show that Kurt worked quite hard at shaping the words to this song, writing lines, scratching them out, editing them, rewriting, and editing some more, making draft after draft again and again and again. After all, Kurt was an admitted poet, and he quite apparently put a lot of effort into what became the final lyrical product of Teen Spirit, and a close inspection of that final product shows the undeniable intelligence and hard work behind it. And that's what this video is aimed at highlighting. It's an in-depth appreciation of the elite craftsmanship of Smells Like Teen Spirit, and the proof that Kurt worked himself quite hard to make sure the lyrics sounded good, and yes, despite popular belief, had meaning. The first verse is expectedly the first example of this. It begins with razor-sharp and very dark sarcasm in its opening lines, which famously go, "Load up on guns, bring your friends, it's fun to lose and to pretend." Now, though many subsequent lines arguably won't fit it, these ones actually are part of a very intentional narrative Kurt planned on painting with this song. They sarcastically advertise the organizational stages of a revolution destined to fail, a youth revolution to be precise. "It's just making fun of the thought of having a revolution," Kurt would tell Rolling Stone years after the song's release, then adding, "But it's a nice thought." That nice thought would stem from Kurt's fondness of a cult classic film from 1979 called Over the Edge. in which rebellious teenagers in a suburban community rise against the adult authority figures in their lives and take over their high school, which is almost exactly what Teen Spirit's music video would depict 12 years later. Over the Edge is a perfect portrait of bored suburban alienated youth, Kurt would once explain, and it had a massive impact on me. In fact, in the Nirvana biography Come As You Are, he'd say the movie pretty much defined his entire personality. On this early Teen Spirit lyric sheet, Kurt describes the gruesome picture in his head of what the song was meant to express and possible ideas for the music video, if it ever got to that point, writing, "Pep assemblies become rallies. Revolutionary debris litters the floor of Wall Street. Your children have taken over. You have been warned. The representatives of gluttony will be given 24 hours to vacuum and shave their ways or leave, or they will be weeded out and assassinated with a hoe to the back of the neck to save bullets." Jeez. However, this revolutionary narrative, or rather, this mocking of a revolutionary narrative, fades into the background after these opening lines, coming and going from here on out. But before we move on to the next lines, let's take a second to appreciate a crucial aspect of what makes Teen Spirit's lyric sheet so elite in terms of creativity, something already in play here, and that's the intricate and unique rhyme scheme. While most songwriters will just rhyme the last syllable of the second and fourth lines of their stanzas, Kurt, who does use this traditional method as well, has also inserted additional rhymes within that general rhyme scheme. While Kurt rhymes the ends of lines 2 and 4 using the words friends and pretend, he also sticks the additional lose and to smack dab in the center of lines 3 and 4. That is, load up on guns, bring your friends, it's fun to lose, and to pretend. And if you think that's just a happy accident or a coincidence, think again. Kurt stitches this pattern in throughout every verse. For example, self-assured, oh no, I know, a dirty word. Always been, and always will until the end. Hard to find, oh well, whatever, never mind. He even bends pronunciations of certain vowel sounds to fit what's coming next to keep this scheme consistent in the cases of, oh yeah, I guess it makes me smile, and for this gift I feel blessed. This unique rhyme scheme, even if nearly imperceptible to a listener's conscious mind, is nonetheless picked up subconsciously to complement the overall flow of the verses, putting Teen Spirit in an elite category of lyricism while showing once again that they were much more thought out and carefully crafted than Kurt would have us believe. In fact, it's probably safe to assume the use of the rhyming words guns and fun is no accident here either. In any event, after these opening lines, Kurt lays out an equally sarcastic commentary on the girl he was dating at the time, or at least this seems to be the common belief among Nirvana historians. That girl's name was, well, it still is, Toby Vale. She was the drummer of the Riot Grrrl punk band Bikini Kill. One night, while her and Bikini Kill's lead singer Kathleen Hanna were at Kurt's house, Kathleen wrote on his wall, "Kurt smells like Teen Spirit," in reference to the teenage deodorant brand. Kurt, as it turned out, had never heard of that deodorant and took the statement to have teenage rebellion connotations, hence the premise and title for the song. The next lines, "She's overboard and self-assured, oh no, I know a dirty word," are widely believed to be about Toby. In fact, Nirvana biographer Everett True has asserted many lyrics on Nevermind are about her, not least of which these lines here. Still others believe them to be about Kathleen, the one who wrote the misunderstood statement on the wall in the first place. Both were apathetic while at the same time politically outspoken and uber-confident, making them both dead ringers for the line. But of course, like anything in art, it's a question for the listener to ponder, as is the question as to whether the revolution in the first stanza feeds into these lines making up the second. That is the self-assured girl the one starting the revolution, or are the stanzas unrelated? Again, Kathleen and Toby were both vociferous revolutionaries of a sort, so it makes sense that these lines are a continuation, or an attempt at a continuation of the ones preceding them. Whatever the case, the wordplay here is once again worth noting. The use of the hyphenated overboard, for instance, that is B-O-R-E-D, as in she's beyond the point of boredom, she's overboard, is a very clever play on the word overboard, that is, B-O-A-R-D, as in going too far. So then, you can hear and interpret the phrase multiple ways: how it's spelled, which displays her apathy, B-O-R-E-D, and how it sounds. In other words, she's overboard, B-O-A-R-D, as in she's extremely intense, but confident in being that way. She's overboard and self-assured. It's a fantastic double entendre. Secondly, the fact that being self-assured should be considered bad manners or a dirty word is once again top-notch detached sarcasm at its finest. In any event, after this first verse, we encounter the pre-chorus, where Kurt repeats the word hello in a droning fashion, bending the last one of each bar into how low, before the famous chorus explodes into the counterintuitive or contradictory statement, with the lights out, it's less dangerous, followed by more sarcasm in the form of a line Kurt used to rattle off when he'd arrive at parties. "Here we are," he'd say with a smirk, "now entertain us." This is followed by, "I feel stupid and contagious." The idea of stupidity being a spreadable virus hilarious in itself, and very Gen X in its self-deprecation. "Here we are, now entertain us," he then repeats, solidifying the line as the main hook, before taking us out of the chorus with a random list of rhyming words, beginning with a mulatto, an albino, the former being a now faux pas term for a person of mixed race, and the second being a term for a person lacking any pigment at all, followed by a mosquito, my libido. And then, after a yeah, hey, and a yay, we're back into the original structure, where Kurt's self-deprecating irony continues into the beginning lines of the second verse, as he pens, "I'm worse at what I do best, and for this gift I feel blessed." Now, aside from the blatantly ironic, contradictory sarcasm continuing on in this verse, these lines open up many avenues for interpretation, but based on many public statements from Kurt, very likely reflect how he viewed his own musical abilities. Music is no doubt what Kurt did best, and he was surely well aware of that. Yet, he expressed that he viewed his musicianship as less than subpar, saying things like, "I have no concept of knowing how to be a musician at all, whatsoever. I couldn't even pass Guitar 101. I'm not a great guitar player. I don't know shit about scales. I just like to play loud, hard, and heavy. And I have to admit I'm not that prolific. I write maybe one good song every 2 months." Though, as he says in this Teen Spirit verse, he felt blessed for the talent he did recognize himself as having, mirroring the sentiments of a journal entry he once penned that explained, "The superior talented have not only control of study but that extra special little gift at birth, fueled by passion." No doubt Kurt recognized that gift at birth was endowed to him, no matter how critical he was of his abilities. Like most, if not all of us, he was nothing if not conflicted, and this line is a perfect expression of that. However, the next lines, "Our little group has always been and always will until the end," bring us back into the original revolutionary narrative. When Kurt was working out these words on one of the original Teen Spirit lyric sheets, one in which basically every line is in keeping with that narrative, there are preceding lines which say, "We cut our hands and made a pact and swore we were never going back." In this case, the little group is the gang of disgruntled students raising rebellion, the ones taking gardening tools to their adult oppressors' necks in order to save bullets. We can see Kurt's original idea was to portray them as some sort of gang, a cult, or even a secret society, with a reference to secret handshakes originally being included in the opening lines. But, as Kurt pointed out in the earlier quote, that narrative somewhat fell away as he worked on the song further, giving this remnant of that storyline a chance at psychologically deeper interpretations. "Our little group has always been and always will until the end" brings to mind something Nirvana bassist Chris Novoselic once stated about how he and Kurt became friends in high school. "He was this weird kid," Chris explained, "and I was a weird kid. We thought the world was weird, and so we gravitated toward each other." This seemingly simplistic statement actually holds a lot of insight into the Nirvana psyche, or more accurately, the underground mentality. It is the weird kids that not only gravitate towards each other, but towards the bigger hub of underground scenes, where the biggest commonality among members are their shared feelings of revile towards the greater mass of quote-unquote normal people, their unwillingness to conform to the status quo. Through all points of recorded history, in every society around the planet, there's always existed fringe groups of artistically minded nonconformists who refuse to shut off their mind and follow the social current, and in Kurt's time and place, that was the underground punk rock scene. In fact, Kurt took social alienation to a very literal level. "I always wanted to think that I was an alien," he'd say of his childhood. "I used to think, I don't belong here. I always wanted to hang out with the people who smoked pot and listened to punk rock." Everyone was so conformist, he'd recall at another time. "They all looked the same, they all had the same morals and beliefs, and I just wanted to be separate from that. I wanted to be in a punk rock band before I even heard punk rock," he'd explain at yet another instance. "When I was a kid, I used to visualize things, and it just seemed like I belonged. Everyone around me was just a carbon copy of one another, and so conformist." The 1980s punk scene that Kurt was magnetized into was a continuation of every outsider group of misfits and nonconformists that came before it throughout social history, a partner branch to every outsider scene it existed contemporaneously alongside, and a predecessor to everyone that would come after. And when looked at through this lens, these lines take on a kind of sacred meaning. It was the underground that Kurt came from, and it was there that he wanted to stay. In any case, after a repeat of the pre-chorus, chorus, and post-chorus, we delve into our third and final verse, in which Kurt writes, "And I forget just why I taste. Oh yeah, I guess it makes me smile. I found it hard. It's hard to find. Oh well, whatever. Never mind." Now, many fans take these lines, at least the first two, to be in reference to Kurt's infamous drug use, namely heroin. And while people have erroneously done this to most Nirvana lyrics, here there is an argument to be made in favor of the theory. First and foremost, the word taste is synonymous with heroin use, especially when one is still in the sampling stage. For example, in the book The Basketball Diaries, Jim Carroll explains getting into heroin by writing, "First it was just a taste, just a nod. Then it was everything." Words which mirror an early lyric sheet to You Know You're Right by Kurt, where he says, "Just another opiate, but to me, it's everything." A line which was written years into his addiction. Teen Spirit, on the other hand, was written in late 1990 and worked on continuously until it was recorded in May of 1991. And this time span happens to coincide perfectly with the beginnings of Kurt's heroin habit. While he experimented with the substance as early as 1986, it became a more regular habit around the end of 1990 and beginning of 1991, right when this verse was written. In fact, in 1993 he reflected on this very period of his songwriting, saying, "I was so strung out that it wasn't like I could write a coherent song," strongly indicating that he was in fact high on heroin while writing most of Nevermind, Teen Spirit certainly being no exception. Likewise, he told another interviewer specifically about writing Teen Spirit, "I was just trying to write something that was honest, and I was really addicted to heroin at the time. Heroin was definitely a crutch. I used it to deal with the pain, with the emotional pain that I had." So, based on these two quotes, we can deduce Kurt used heroin to the point of delirious incoherence at that time to treat feelings of sadness, or to put it subliminally, "And I forget just why I taste. Oh yeah, I guess it makes me smile." That is, he used heroin to find happiness. The last stanza, "I found it hard, it's hard to find, oh well, whatever, never mind," could very well be a continuation of the last thought pattern, meaning, "I found life hard, and it's hard to find that which takes away the unhappiness." Or they may be unrelated altogether. But two things are definite about these lines. First off, the definite poetic technique being used here is known as an enigmatically, which is a literary device where words or phrases are repeated in reverse order to create emphasis, such as "all for one and one for all," or "the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence," or "when the going gets tough, the tough get going." The second surety in these lines is the returning theme of apathy. the lack of emotion, concern, or motivation. An attitude which could be said to have defined Generation X, the generation this song grabbed a hold of. It's the perfect ending to the song. The pessimistic sarcasm never waning, it starts with an ambition to revolt against the status quo, to rise up, to take control, and ends with the attitude of, oh well, whatever, never mind. In other words, on second thought, who gives a shit? These last words of verse 3 could very well be the clenching selling point of Teen Spirit. This sentiment alone, equaled maybe by I Feel Stupid and Contagious, is the hook that the 90s generation of teens instantly identified with. Honestly, if we were to choose a catchphrase to encapsulate 90s youth pop culture, whatever would be hard to contend with. And this is proven by how many characters of that era literally used it as their catchphrase. Well, this verse is likely our first example of its common use in widely circulated media, giving us great insight into why Teen Spirit, and the attitude it espoused under its seemingly scattered subject matter, took such a strong and instant hold of the universal mind of the generation it was released within. It's been said many times over the last several decades now that Smells Like Teen Spirit is a standout accomplishment of music. And though Kurt Cobain sloughed off the lyrics and pretended they were a collection of afterthoughts, the amount of work he put into them shows a much different story. While the powerful melodic music of this masterwork is what initially drew us all in, the carefully chosen, worked and reworked and then reworked again lyrics are what spoke to us, shaped us, resonated with us, hooked us in completely, turned us all into Nirvana fans for the rest of our lives, and paved a new path for the countless bands who projected the spirit of rebellion shrouded in apathy that came rolling in on Teen Spirit's massive wake. While Kurt's off-the-cuff statement about Teen Spirit being more about the feeling than the words themselves may ring true, to ignore the lyrics would be a crime against art, and an insult to the time and effort he successfully put into creating them. In reality, it is the perfect combination of melody, intensity, performance, and lyrics that, when played, still make Smells Like Teen Spirit hit us in the same way it did when it was brand new to us, somehow holding the mysterious ability to remain fresh and powerful as decade after decade disappears in our rear view. Very few songs, maybe only a handful, have the power to do that, and Teen Spirit is widely considered to be one of those rare gems, and rightfully so. But of course, that's just one interpretation, and I'd love to know in the comments section what you think Teen Spirit is about, and what the song means to you. If you'd like to help the channel out, you can do so by simply liking and sharing this video, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button for more Lyristoric content in the future. You won't regret it, and we'd love to have you aboard. Until next time,